Can you
Yep.
see that? Okay.
Yeah, we can see that. Thank you, Margarita. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Landscape Architecture and Engineering Open House. We have a great event planned for you today. We're going to start with some program overview, just give you some details of the curriculum, faculty, and then we'll move into talking about some of the faculty research that we'll be doing during this program. There will be a time for question and answers at the end of the program. So if you have questions throughout, feel free to send them in the chat, and I will look at them and hold them for that question and answer session. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ehab and Margarita, the two program directors for the event, for the program.
Hello, everyone. So we are excited to being able to offer this landscape architecture engineering program overview for the digital open house, this graduate open house for everyone. And thank you all for coming, for attending. So we're going to cover a little bit of the basics, and we're looking forward to your questions. So this is a dual Masters of Landscape Architecture and Master of Science in River Coastal Science and Engineering. And we've been designing this. Let's see if I can push the button. No. Designing this for some years now, together with the Department of Science, with the School of Science and Engineering and the School of Architecture together during several years until being able to launch this program. The degree overview is that the educational mission. It provides essentially an interdisciplinary program of study in landscape architecture, which of course includes design, community, urbanism, and engineering with a specialty in hydrology, soils, and nature-based infrastructures, and also the combination of sciences, especially ecology, wetlands, and natural systems. So this is a dual degree. It's a program that aims to, of course, prepare you to practice and professionally. So the program of study is 3 years and a half long. It's 6 semesters. It includes also a summer semester of 10 weeks in summer 25. So we have options of advanced standing and that are going to be studied case by case of you all and studied by a committee mixed of different disciplines to provide this advanced standing possibility. Then we also have financial support available, and that's also something that will be studied on a case-by-case basis. So the curriculum has, as an overview, we have the summer, which is an intro to everything. Of course, the program is prepared for everyone, anyone with any background coming from humanities, from design fields, science fields, engineering fields, from professional, or even directly from the undergrad education. So it's prepared to get up to speed to everyone with any background, as long as have a bachelor. So we start with this summer course that is a prep summer course of 10 weeks. Then we move into what we call the blue year. That is an emphasis on coastal and riverine landscapes, hydrology, and green infrastructure. We move in this, after this blue year, we move into the green year with an emphasis on urban ecology, regenerative landscape, green urbanism, field botany. And then the third year is the research year, where we study in depth research studios that are also aiming to deal with the challenges of the region, the climate adaptation, research methods, advanced topics of studio, thesis, and etc. across the different departments of the School of Architecture and the Built Environment and the School of Engineering, specifically the two departments that are involved, that is River Coastal Science and Engineering and Ecology and Evolutionary Biology. So with this is a little bit of overview of the main content matter that we have in the first year. We have combined in this first column the courses in summer plus the courses of fall and spring of 25 and 26. Then the second year, we have studios and streetscapes at the intersection of natural systems and artificial systems. And then the research year that is very much followed with thesis advisors and the support of research methods and research seminars. The education is supported by the studio experience and the iterative process of design. And we have a lot of engaged design into local communities and the reality of the Gulf Coast region and its challenges, and a lot of outdoor and field study to analyze and recognize the conditions of the region. I hand here to my colleague Ihab Meselhe, professor at River Coastal Science and Engineering, to co-explain this presentation we have put together. Ihab.
Thank you very much, Margarita. Hello, everyone. I'm Ihab Meselhi, faculty in the Department of River Coastal Science and Engineering. If you can go please to the next slide, Margarita. So there are some activities that also you will gain some familiarity with it, some like site analysis, as you can see in the image here. We do operate drones to gather LiDAR data, field observations. So through this program, you will learn the basic principles of these, the data that are produced in the field like that. Here is an image here that you can also see that you will have some exposure to use of computer models to do hydrologic and analysis for rivers and coastal systems. Next slide, please. There is also some activities that we have in the lab that you are seeing here. This is a water table where you actually get to see the evolution of deltaic and coastal systems in real time. It's actually a lot of fun that you can use your own hands to see how the water and the sediment moves and how it responds to processes like waves, tides, the presence or absence of vegetation. So you will gain practical experiences and hand-on experiences through some of our classes. Next slide, please.
And in addition to this work in the labs, we across Tulane campus, Uptown campus, we have a lot of maker spaces to do model for the studio, woodshop, print labs, 3D model, laser, ceramics lab, working with even natural materials, and a robot lab that is available for students to use in this program. And the group of faculty, it's a combination of different expertise. That's the kind of strength of the program. Ihab and myself are co-directing this amazing team of designers and scientists. In studio, we'll have scientists and designers, so Liz Camuti, Wes Michael, and Mead Allison. Maybe some words to Mead if you want to say something.
Sorry, just had to unmute. Welcome, everybody. I'll just chime in and welcome you. Actually, there's a mistake on there. Ehab is now the chair of River Coastal Science and Engineering. I'm just a graduate advisor. So if you're in the program, you'll see me in terms of coordinating that side of the degree. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So at the end of the presentation, we'll have the opportunity to dig more deep into the work of Liz Camuti and Wes Michaels, our 2-star hires here for the program on the side of landscape architecture. And then we have faculty specialists, a large list, but here we have chosen some of them and welcome. I want to just give the opportunity. So Keith Clay is the chair, is on leave, but he will be there here when we start the program and give the word to Annalisa Molini and Sonke Dangerdorf briefly. Annalisa.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Annalisa Molini, River and Coastal Science and Engineering. So it's a very exciting moment because I'm really looking forward to start to work in this program that is highly multidisciplinary. So it's a great experiment. I think it's a great way to put together the expertise of scientists and engineers, landscape architects, and try to do something that is really unique. So just a really warm welcome to everybody.
Thank you, Annalisa. Sonke, do you want to say some words?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sönke Dangendorf. I'm also assistant professor in the River Coastal Science and Engineering. department. I'm also really looking forward in collaborating with everyone. I have an engineering background, so for me it's really exciting to not only build something usable for the cities, but something that actually fits into the natural landscape or into the urban settings where we are actually working. So I'm really looking forward to that collaboration. Hi, everyone again.
Thank you, Sonke. Thank you, Annalisa. So we have more people that we'll get to know as you coming in the program. So career opportunities are diverse. So we have, of course, private practice outside to enter the professional landscape architecture firms or engineering firms or related in the field. So maybe Ihab, you can continue here with the other options we have.
Yeah, definitely. As you saw in our department, we are definitely not a traditional engineering department. Our department has a DNA of interdisciplinarity inherited in it. Some of us are scientists, some of us are engineers, and we're working collaboratively to instruct the classes that we are included in this program. We envision our students will be quite marketable in the private sector, in engineering firms, landscape architecture firms. We expect our graduates also to be quite marketable in the government sector, both state governments as well as federal governments. Some of our graduates already are working in the federal government, and they're quite successful. So we also see that there is possibility that people who would like to continue beyond this program to earn a PhD and pursue academic career, that is also the path is still there. Through this program, you will gain a really well-rounded experiences in terms of design experiences as well as science and engineering analytic experiences, and that is quite needed now given the complexity of the large-scale environmental challenges that globally is being faced. So we feel that we will be producing graduates that have the perfect blend of experiences and knowledge to tackle these problems, and we feel that they will be quite marketable in variety of market sectors like that. Margarita.
So we are really excited, as you hope. I hope you can perceive that there is this slide with this fantastic landscape of the region, and that we are very much looking forward to you joining the inaugural class to explore these innovative approaches to climate change, as Ihab was mentioning, and of course environmental justice and nature-based infrastructures that the region faces. So just you have here a QR code and access to our emails and information about this inaugural class starting in summer 25. And as you know, the applications are open. So before, of course, closing this, I would like very much to invite our two stars designers, Liz and Wes, to share briefly their work before we move into questions.
Here, I'll share my screen, Margarita. Okay, so I just wanted to talk briefly today about a funded studio program that we currently have running at the School of Architecture that will eventually transition into this dual degree program, and that is called the Gulf Coast Climate Futures Program, and it'll eventually be put into our research year, this curriculum that Margarita just presented. So without further ado, this is a studio program that really seeks to aim students, to ground students' knowledge in the existing plans for and realities of this region. So documents like the 2023 Coastal Master Plan, the Louisiana Climate Action Plan, other resilience plans. But then to use that knowledge to think innovatively about more equitable futures that we could embed within similar plans that our students create. So the strategies and design outputs that we develop in these studios really are intended to guide investment from think tanks and non-for-profit entities, including the National Academy of Sciences Gulf Research Program, which is the current sponsor of this project, as well as other organizations. And so we really aim to put forward projects that are actionable at the local level to seek further and additional funding for moving towards implementation. And the foundation of this studio is really about addressing climate mitigation and climate adaptation in tandem. So not just thinking about what we need to do to adapt through more traditional strategies, some of the ones put forward in the Louisiana Coastal Master Plan, but also trying to couple thinking about decarbonization and lowering emissions at the same time and through the same projects. And as I mentioned, this has been an ongoing studio that we've currently been teaching in architecture. We're in our third year of this program, also coupled with the Engaged Urban Design seminar that is taught in the Small Center for Collaborative Design, but eventually transitioning this into a landscape and engineering studio, likely during the time that some of you will be in this program. And our current affiliated faculty are myself and Margarita, but also, as I mentioned, we work with the Small Center for Collaborative Design, as well as SSE. So me and EHAB have come and given guest lectures before, and it's been a really great opportunity to pilot our collaboration within these studio courses. And so just high level to talk about some of the things that we've done in the studio and the questions that we've been asking. For the first 2 years of the program, we were really focused on the Gulf as a whole, so focused on what we defined as the region from Houston to Mobile, and having students look at this region holistically, putting forward projects that are maybe sited in a specific location, but have ideas that could be replicable at various places across the region. Some of our major research questions that have been pretty much directly tied to the National Academy's Gulf Research Program's focus areas. The first one being oil and gas legacy infrastructures, starting to ask questions about the future of intensive or industrial scale working landscapes in this region. In the realm of environmental protection and stewardship, thinking about what might happen if we begin to couple things like landscape architecture and engineering to rethink industrial scale or single purpose buildings and infrastructures. And last but certainly not least, on the focus area of health and community resilience, thinking about equity and how existing settlement and habitation patterns throughout the Gulf Coast region might be rethought or redesigned to prioritize better health outcomes or community resilience. So now that we're in our third year, we've been zooming in a little bit more to focus on basically just more zoomed in or what we've been calling subregions of this larger Gulf Coast region. And we've started this year looking at Beaumont, Orange, and Port Arthur, which known as the Golden Triangle. So we just got back from a trip there a few weeks ago, investigating sort of the interfaces between vacant land and industrial scale infrastructure, petrochemical refineries, for example, in this region. We've also been working with community partners. These are two of our community partners from an organization called CETA, which is an environmental justice organization that has been organizing with frontline communities and trying to hold industry accountable for pollution and other aspects of the petrochemical industry. And just to maybe give you a taste of some of the work that has been happening in the studio, students address design research from a variety of angles. This semester, we started by looking at each student looked at research and drawing through the lens of an object. So starting to think about the lineages and trajectories of things like oil derricks and shrimp trawlers, the cattle industry, for example, or Indigenous communities' mound building practices to try to use that as a way to begin to understand this region. We then move into a phase that's really utilizing GIS mapping and spatial analysis to begin to try to unpack some of these things that we're observing in the landscape from a systems analysis lens. And finally, students begin to put forward proposals for their own sites in which to test design proposals. So this is a multi-scalar drawing, thinking about a project that could situate in a power plant in Lake Charles, Louisiana, from the second year of this program. And then finally, testing site-specific design proposals, which are a really critical part of the studio's effort to show how all of the thinking that we're doing at the regional scale can actually function at the scale of an individual site to enact change in that specific locale. And as I mentioned earlier, the most successful projects in the studio to date have really been exhibiting how maybe site-specific strategies or individual projects can be replicable across the region. This is another project from the third year of our studio, thinking about how we might reuse oil and gas pipelines as part of habitat creation. And just to talk a little bit about the way that we've worked in the studio, it's been a really collaboration-intensive studio. So students are working together through design charrettes. These maps on the right also were created as full studio groups. So all 12 of the students work together to put forward these maps that begin to articulate some of their collective visions for the future of the region. Oops. And finally, the opportunity to work with a community partner has been a real improvement and asset to this project. These are some photos from this semester. You can see some of our students beginning to engage with our community partners, Hilton and Michelle, presenting their design work to them, to each other, and to thinking about and starting conversations that really ground their lived experience in the projects that the students are creating. And finally, we, as Margarita mentioned about field study, we really do try to get out into the landscape of these places. These are some photos from our first year where we went to Morgan City and visited a rig museum. The second photo is of us at LumCon in the second year of this program. So really trying to ground all of our study in the landscapes of this region. And finally, I'll just make a plug for our exhibit that is currently up at the Small Center for Collaborative Design right now. If you're local to New Orleans or you find yourself passing through, you might choose to stop by the Small Center and see some of the work from the past 2 years of the studio on display, and along with the work of community partners like CRCL and Glass Half Full in this exhibit that is really focused on the material legacies and futures of this region. And I think that's it for me. If you have questions about this program specifically, please feel free to email me, and my email is on the screen. And I'll hand it over to Wes.
Perfect. Yes.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Liz.
Wonderful.
Let me see. I'm going to share my screen. I'm Wes Michaels. I'm an associate professor of landscape architecture here in the program and practicing landscape architect. And I think one of the great things about the faculty in this program is that everybody has both academic experience, but they also have real world experience. And Mead and Ehab and Annalisa and Sanka are all studying real world problems through their research. These are issues that they're addressing, that really actually impact the communities that live in these types of coastal and riverine landscapes. Margarita is a practicing landscape architect as well, and I encourage you to look at her book River and Cities, and it's a pretty amazing collection of her work over the past. Liz also comes from a background of practice, and of course, as I'm going to present here, we have some. I'm still practicing as well as bringing that experience into this academic environment. So I'm going to show a few images of the type of research. Let me see if I can get this in full screen here. Some of the work that we're interested in and is going on both in my research work, but also in practice. And a lot of it has to do with this idea that we're working with the EPA on thinking about disaster resilient design concepts. So this is looking at both sort of this large scale work, and it's very similar to the scale that Liz was talking about earlier, where we're thinking about large scale issues. And so we're thinking about things like wildfire and how do we start to prepare communities for wildfire. Of course, very much sort of a central focus on this is thinking about coastal systems as they relate to hurricanes, as they relate to sea level rise, different issues that are around storm surge and how the coast reacts to these types of challenges. And I think it's what's important about this and what's interesting about this program is that these issues that we're facing along the Gulf Coast as we can start to see, like from Hurricane Helene, are starting to be experienced in other parts of the country. So this is really a part of the country where we are thinking about these issues and have been thinking about these issues for a long time, but they have a broad base of applicability to other parts of the world. We're looking at riverine, inland river and riverine flooding and how that affects different communities across the country, and coming up with speaking with communities, localized solutions for how this might they might start to deal and adapt to the changing climate. Extreme heat is something that we've been thinking about a lot, and one of the projects that I'm not going to sort of show today, but is you can probably find information about, is we worked on the New Orleans Reforestation Plan, which is looking at how trees and regenerative green systems can start to combat, extreme heat and really affect positively the way people live in cities as the world gets a little bit hotter. Drought is another issue that we consider sort of as one of the pieces in the larger puzzle. Landslides and mudslides, tornadoes and earthquakes. Thinking about things like how resilience hubs, how communities come together and prepare themselves both through open space, but also through different types of resilience structures that they can gather in and find resources with after a storm. So to sort of zoom in a little bit, and some of the work that we're doing that follow up on this is we're looking at 15 communities across the US for the EPA and helping them think about detailed climate adaptation strategies for their particular issues. And one of them I'm going to focus in on is this project here very quickly in Miami, Oklahoma, which is the Riverview Park. But Miami, Oklahoma is a place where one of the largest Superfund sites in the country is located. And so there's a lot of pollution along an area called Tar Creek. And so the community is looking at both ways to think about their relationship to this river that has a history of pollution, but also how to think about different ways of using their open space to engage the community and bring them access to traditional open space and nature and the things that come along with that. And one of the pieces that we think about a lot in this is the idea around storytelling and working with the community. And these are the types of opportunities that we can start to think about, in the studio work. And while at the same time thinking about the structural, the ecological, the engineering systems, the nature-based infrastructure, and how that operates and how that influences the design of these types of spaces as communities start to grapple with these issues of increasing floods and erosion and different types of river challenges that they face. And so this is just a quick overview of the type of work that comes out of this, which is the proposal to a park that's flooding and being this idea that the park they're trying to remove some of the floodable elements from this park and reimagine this park as a series of tallgrass prairie trails and park structures. So again, this is where the traditional piece of landscape architecture comes in, thinking about the design of these types of spaces. And the same as with Liz, like the studio often gets down to these types of spaces. So we're thinking about the large scale. So where are we coming from? What are the larger systems that are affecting this? But also thinking about the scale of the site and the scale of how open space, water systems, community involvement all come together in a single project. And so the idea here is around the studio model is that these types of projects are drawing on the vast expertise of all the people you've met today. But at the end of the day, we're also looking at solutions and on the ground site design interventions that really become something that can really positively affect communities, and especially as they're dealing with climate adaptation. I think I'm going to pause there and pass it back over to Margarita. And again, I think it's probably going to be some question and answer time at this point. But Margarita or Michael, do you want to
Yeah, I'll take it over. Thank you, Wes. Thank you, everyone who presented today. I'm going to invite all of the faculty and everyone who's panelists on here to show their video. We have a couple of questions that we want to answer first. Would someone like to explain? The question is this program accredited by lab, and are there plans for accreditation? So would someone explain the accreditation timeline?
Yes, so we are, can you hear me? Yeah. We are working in close collaboration with the lab, the Landscape Accreditation Agency Board, from the conception of this program down to the first graduate. So the idea is that the board will work with us, and as soon as we graduate the first out of the door, the program will be accredited. So when you finish, you will have your certificate as a lab accredited, which is a typical process that every program do for the first generation. It's just that we work closely every semester, every year with them to make sure that the first graduate is accredited.
And when will the program expect to receive the full accreditation? Did you mention that?
So that when the program is 3.5 years passed, with the first graduate that has passed through the whole program.
Okay.
Then
Gotcha.
we have the lab accredited.
The next question is, this student is looking into traditional MLA programs, and they want to know, is this program for traditional MLA students, or is this program more for engineering environmental studies students?
I think Wes can answer that.
Yeah, I think this program very much will satisfy a traditional MLA student in terms of the type of work that you're doing. So, Liz and I both have MLAs in landscape architecture, and the work that will be done in studio will be very much focused on these sort of site scale interventions at the end of a lot of the studios. So we'll look at sort of large scale issues and the systems that are sort of affecting these sites. But what I think will be special about this is as we get down into that site scale design, the work that's done with the engineering group and the modeling skills that you would have as a landscape architecture engineering degree student versus just working as a landscape architect, where often we are making, sort of like educated guesses about what riverine systems might do. This program, you'll be able to work on these sites and have those modeling skills and have that engineering background to also be able to make real technical decisions through the iterative process of design. It's the type of program, honestly, that I wish I would have been able to go through as a graduate student, because having practiced for so long, we so often compartmentalize the engineering piece of this. So as a practicing landscape architect, we, iterate different design options, and then we send it off to the engineers, and it goes into their bubble for a little while, and it comes back into landscape architecture. And what I think this program will be able to do is bridge that gap, not only through skills, but also vocabulary, being able to understand, what's going on the engineering side, but also to be able to use that real time when you're in the design studio. So, I think my opinion is you'd be very much, feel like you are getting all the skills from a traditional MLA program, but with an added sort of insight into some of those technical and engineering and science-based knowledge streams and philosophies and theories that I think will be really unique. So anyway, Liz, or does anybody have anything to add to that?
I think that was perfect, Wes.
Yeah.
I also agree that I wish I had taken this set of courses.
Ehab, I'll toss this next question to you. Is landscape architecture, is this program thesis-based or design-based?
I believe, it has there's a lot of design studios along the way. But I think the last year, as Margarita mentioned, the last year, it does include a thesis component. Please elaborate on that, Margarita. But I believe the year 3 does have a thesis in it, but there is a ton of design studios in both year 1 and year 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thesis is always tailored to the interest of the students, coupled with the capacity of the wide array of expertise we have in this program.
I'm curious to hear maybe from some of the SSE folks, what does a typical person with this, once they graduate, what kind of things can they do in the science world and engineering world? And then I'll flip the question over to some of the MLA folks too.
Anybody from River Costa would like to chime in, and I can add, of course. Go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
Sure. Typically, we expect our graduates to be quite marketable in the private sector, and I can start with that. There are a lot of engineering firms, both in the region here in the Gulf region as well as nationally. And the market right now could not be stronger, honestly. There's just so much work related to infrastructure that requires people with this kind of background, both in terms of ability to do evaluation and analysis and screening of protection strategy, adaptation strategies, but as well as design experiences. And this program here addresses something that some engineering programs don't have a lot of design hours. This program here has, ample of design hours, which I think it will make the graduate of this degree really stand out, because it has that blend similar to what Wes mentioned, that they don't have to keep tossing things back and forth, that they will have really a very well-rounded experiences. So the private sector is quite strong, and I expect it to be strong for a while, because the infrastructure really requires a lot of work. In addition to, there is also massive demand right now from federal government for employees. The closest example is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They are hungry for people with this kind of background. Today they're snatching our graduates as soon as they complete their master's degree, and I think that they will be even more marketable with the design experiences.
Could I just add something, which is that we are working together. This is a joint program, but if it's not clear from the literature, it's also a dual degree program. In other words, you will walk away with a master's in science and engineering as well as a landscape architecture degree. And in that sense, you're every bit as marketable as any of our master's graduates in science and engineering.
Awesome. Well, Wes, Liz, Margarita, can y'all answer, that same question from your side? Or, what kind of career outcomes are there for students from this program?
Yeah, I think in terms of landscape architecture, I think this will be an incredibly unique degree. And traditional practice would be obviously, right in the wheelhouse of a graduate to go into any of the firms that are doing this type of work across the country, which, is really a growing field. And there's, lots of firms that are being involved, in this large scale planning work for coastal planning work. Liz worked in practice on the State Coastal Master Plan as a landscape architect, and so these types of work and the skills to be able to think at this scale and really talk about it in practice will be highly desirable. And I think having that engineering language and being able to liaise with the engineering groups in these types of large coastal plans, river plans, would be one. I mean, the second is to work, there's a lot of landscape architects, but working in these sort of coastal management agencies that are thinking about sort of managing the coastal landscapes, that are looking at watershed management. And this would be an ideal spot for someone who wants to really think regionally and look at the planning scale, because one of the strengths of the program is as you saw sort of how Liz's work really went from this large scale regional planning lens down to the work that I showed, which is really thinking about design at that human scale. The program really covers all those scales. So I think the opportunity to work on those regional and even federal planning agencies, and working for the EPA, for the Army Corps, for different groups that are looking at large scale plans like that is one thing. And then even I know in engineering, MLA is not a terminal degree, but in landscape architecture it is. And so there's opportunities to potentially even go into academics directly, or to continue your education, or to work as in some form or fashion in either institutions such as like nonprofits. Lots of nonprofits are working on these types of things. So there's a host of different ways to go. The breadth of opportunity, I think, from having this dual degree for sort of career paths is unprecedented. I mean, I think you can go in a lot of different directions, and so I think that is a real strength of the program.
Awesome. Thank you, Wes. Question here from a student is, how often are communities engaged in the studios? Because we mentioned a lot during the presentation. I think the student's asking, is there any support for students who have a special interest in this?
Typically in MLAs, there are always one or two studios that have a relationship with community partners by definition to comply with lab requirements. So it's probably in upper levels, in late second year or third year before thesis when this happen. It's still not determined, but it will happen. Yeah. And we are within a community at the School of Architecture that has very much a long tradition of engaging locally. The focus itself of the program is regional, because we have a lot of partnership built in at the School of Architecture. We have the small Center for Collaborative Design that has had more than 20 years of working with communities. So it's a huge asset of contacts and personal relationships sustained that we can drive on.
Great. I think the students are still trying to figure out what the combination of landscape architecture and engineering is. And so the question is, how would a typical studio look like? Will we be integrating the engineering side of the program directly into designs, calculating systems for our projects? Does someone want to get into the details of that?
I'm happy to speak to that a little bit, unless Margarita, you want to? Okay. So in the first two studios, particularly the Riverine and Coastal Studios in the first year, those will be co-taught between our landscape faculty and our engineering faculty, with the idea that if studio is happening 3 days a week, which is typically how we teach studio, that one of those days will be devoted to exactly the question posed, right? So integrating actual calculations into your design projects, having workshops that integrate hydrological modeling into the speculation about these design projects. So particularly in those first 2 years, they will be tightly integrated between landscape and engineering faculty, with the idea of bringing in some of the skills that our engineering faculty have into those studio projects. But Ihab or Mead, I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Maybe just a little bit on that. The support on the logistics side is that the teaching load is 200%. So we have between 150% of hours dedicated. So we really are investing into this co-teaching for the first year in a way that it's somehow unprecedented and economically, like investing a lot of studio or time from faculty. So to make it happen. Mead.
You have anything to add to that?
Go ahead, Mead.
I would just say, outside of the formal design studios where we're going to be co-instructing, you're going to reach a thesis point, right? And theoretically, you're going to have faculty from both architecture, landscape architecture, and science and engineering working with you on your thesis topic. So we're going to be working with you hand in hand from the beginning to the end. It's going to switch a little bit from more formal classwork to more individualized thesis research work.
I wanted to also mention that there, as you saw in the program, there are dedicated classes for engineering that will help build your background. And then we will supplement that with our participation in the design studio, as Liz and Margarita and Mead mentioned. And those we will apply some of the principles that we taught in the engineering classes into actual projects in these studios. You could be, I can envision that you will be building a computer model for the system that you're trying to analyze, and we'll walk you through how do you actually set up and apply a computer model similar to any civil engineer does.
Awesome, thank you. We have a few minutes left for some additional questions if anybody wants to reach out. This question's about the portfolio, and the student's asking, can we share some more information about what a portfolio looks like, the pages, numbers of projects, etc.
Well, the portfolio is a requirement for people that are looking for advanced standing. So if you have a portfolio to put together, I don't think we're really focused on the exact quantity of projects or the number of projects that are in there. I think what we're really looking for is a representation of your work, your background, sort of like where your design training that you've had, or other relevant information, and how you can and basically how you present that. So I would say there's no real strict set of number of pages or projects, but represent your work the best that you can, and it'll help us understand what your skills are and where you might fit into into the program at an advanced standing. I mean, portfolios are encouraged if in any scenario, but it's really only required for advanced standing.
And I think we'll take this as our last question. Can we use AI in the portfolio? Does anyone want to speak to that? I'll probably answer this. If the AI is the majority of your portfolio, it's no. But if you have maybe a component part that AI helped you with, but really we want to see a representation of your work in these portfolios, and so as little as possible, I think would be the answer.
I would also just add that please note what was generated by AI.
Yeah.
And also maybe a comment that it's not necessarily about evaluating you, but making sure that if you enter, you succeed through the path of that is designed. So it's designed for anyone to enter and pass through. And so you want to be the more, honesty is the word, no? Honesty and showing everything you have done, your passions, your interests, and will help you to go through. So don't try to get, an image of yourself that is not. So we can, so that's an advice. Just show all your potentials and interests and passion, and we'll get it from there.
Yeah.
Michael, may I add something from the engineering side and
Absolutely.
AI? Because we do use machine learning and AI-based tools to do analysis and modeling. So that's part of the activities that we do as well in our modeling classes in particular. So AI and machine learning is pretty heavily used in the engineering and the science fields productively. But we will also discuss these in the classes as well.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all the time we have for question and answer. I'll leave this last moment. Does any faculty, anyone have any closing words before we end our session today?
I would encourage anyone
to say that we're excited. Yep, sorry.
I would encourage anyone that has any questions to reach out directly to us. And we're happy to answer questions on a personal one-on-one basis if there's something that wasn't covered here. I'll put my email address in the chat?
Well, everyone who attended today will receive a follow-up email
Okay.
From us with faculty information to the information to the program website and information about applying to the program. So if you have any questions for any of our faculty members here today, feel free to follow up through email once you get that. We want to thank you all for coming to this open house. We will be recording this event, so and will be sent out to everyone who's registered and everyone who's interested in the program. But thank you all for coming, and y'all have a great day. Bye everybody.
Thanks.